So thanks for being in here. Right, all the carriers are working very, very hardly to break down their booths. So we appreciate all the partners being in here. I would like to go ahead and invite the Titans of Telecom panelists up here. I want to make one thing very important is that almost all of these panelists all represent they all represent carriers of ours. Right, that are diamond sponsors of TCG, and there's only 5 of those. So we really, really, really appreciate our diamond sponsors. So with that being said, I would like to introduce all of your panelists. If you guys want to come on up here, I'm going to give you a second to do your own introductions. But we've got Christopher Jones, representative from AT&T. We've got Cliff, right from Crown Castle. I've got John Delosier up here from 8x8. Then we've got Craig Schlegbaum from Comcast. All right, so Dan and I are going to sit up here and we're going to kind of ping pong the questions back and forth to you guys. But we wanted to keep this very high level, since you all are esteemed professionals in our field, and we're going to we're going to ask one question and give each of you kind of your own chance to respond. But first, we're going to lighten up the mood a little bit. Okay, we're going to kind of get the jitters off. We got a couple personal questions for you all. Okay. First one's first. If you could have dinner and or drinks with one person, either past or present, who would it be and why? Chris?
Bill Gates. I've been watching a Netflix series on Bill Gates, and I just watching how he thinks, how he approaches things. He's just a fascinating guy.
I don't have a celebrity answer like that, but a serious one actually. I would say my father, who unfortunately passed away, and unfortunately he was sick, and I didn't get to talk to him and say a lot of things I wanted to say to him. He got very ill quickly, and by then he was on heavy meds. But anyone who has parents still around, I encourage you to spend time with your parents before you may regret it. So, serious answer to a fun question.
JD?
Yeah, that's a really good answer, yeah. Come on.
It's a tough act to follow, actually.
Craig, by the way, Craig will never tell you this, but he won the Lifetime Achievement Award at Channel Partners this year, Circle of Excellence. And he told that story about his dad. And I mean, it has literally affected me since you told it. So it's a really good story. That's a great answer. And I'm not mimicking you, but maybe a little bit. My answer would be, and I'm going to take a little second here. My answer would be my grandfather. And his name was Jack Delosier. And I'm the third. So John, Jack, Johnny, JD. And we lost him 10 years ago, but he was a guy that literally had an 8th grade education, ate mustard sandwiches and apples out of an apple orchard for lunch almost every single day. And when he passed away, he lived in a $300,000 house that was paid off. He had about $250,000, $300,000 in the bank. Not that finances is everything, but that generation and this guy with 11 brothers and sisters knew how to get it done. And he was a huge influence on me. And if I could just have him back one more time, just to look at what's going on 10 years later, and the devices and the households and this room and the technology we're talking about, I think it would blow him away. So I would say my grandfather.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Gee, this is really a family group here. Well, mine's a little different. Mine is actually Stephen Hawking's.
Okay.
And the reason is I love physics and I love what's going on in the world. But if you think about the transformation he's created, he's an individual that had everything against him physically. And yet, his voice has been heard throughout the world. And here's a person that's affecting the way we're going to actually change the next generation. We're going to step into space, and these are the people that have created it for us. So he's always influenced me to say, regardless of the adversity we face, there's always something that's out there that's our challenge, but we always can overtake it. And he's always affected me along those lines.
Those are all great answers, and when I first thought of this question, the first thing I thought of was the person that's kind of probably impacted everybody in this room and everybody who has kids, parents, anybody that they do business with. And when you think about it, everybody in this room right now is sitting there holding their phone, looking at it. And when I look at the evolution of the smartphone, it was really brought upon by Steve Jobs, right? And you think about the way that it impacts all of our lives today, from your banking to your photo albums to the way that you order a taxi, FaceTime, all these different things. I just think that he was so innovative and so forward-thinking and ahead of his time. It would be really pretty cool to sit and have a dinner or a drink with that guy.
Yeah, I can't agree more. So the next question, before we get into the industry stuff, there's just one more personal question. You know, we all know you by your LinkedIn profiles and what you do, but this is about who you are, and it only requires a one-word answer or a couple-word answers. If you could be a member of any band, right, what band would you be a member of?
Oh, this is easy.
All right. I was thinking about this a lot, and it came to me last night, and it's not what you'd expect, but I would want to be over the top, so I'd want to be in Kiss.
Nice. All right. All right.
70s, I'll go to 80s. I for some reason like Journey. Second get would be maybe Motley Crue.
Yeah. Yes. So this is a great question, by the way. By the way, Zimmerman, you're a little subdued today. I need you a little more energy from you.
You need a little more
from
energy
this.
from me?
Yes,
Oh,
from
wow.
you.
All right.
For me, I'm a classic rock 80s guy, right? I love it. And easy choice, Van Halen, early 80s, At the Whiskey, the Troubadour, somewhere in Los Angeles and West Hollywood. That would be where I would go.
All right.
Yeah.
Gee, I'm a little bit more modern than you guys. I actually like Eminem.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Because I like being disruptive and I don't like following the norm.
I like it. I like it.
I didn't picture you as a rapper, but I would say when I think, and it's not that it's my favorite band by a long shot, but to be a member of a band, I think it would be pretty cool to be a member of the Beatles. When you think about the pioneers of the rock and roll and just the pandemonium that was surrounding them at every single concert was unbelievable.
All right, so let's jump right into the panel question. So you guys have all been in the channel quite some time and watched it evolve through the years. What is your favorite thing about the channel and why? You can start, Chris. Starting here.
I think I've been in the channel, I've been out of the channel at AT&T, and I think the best part of the channel for me is it's very entrepreneurial. It moves kind of where customers are going, it moves where business is going, it moves where technology is going. When I think about our direct sales force, oftentimes we're very stagnant, and we're not always aggressive as we should be. And I think when I think about the channel, anyone in the channel that's succeeding in the channel, you're having to be very entrepreneurial, you're being very forward thinking, you're aggressively chasing whatever's next. And I think that's what's so exciting, because we set out goals and we set out objectives, and the channel has this ability to go do things that people didn't think was possible, and you can make it possible. And so to me, that's what's so exciting about the channel.
Yeah, similar answer. I'd say, you know, you work in these large companies, and if you're only on the direct side, you see one lens of the world. But because you work with these outside partners, you know, it's the stories. There's so many things that over the years I've spent, you know, out there and seen so many things and watched these companies develop. And I even go back to Intelisys, you know, and even TCG and other companies, just the way they started and the way they've evolved, and then a lot of the downstream partners. It's been great and fascinating. It cost me a lot of personal time because I've had to put 3 million miles on different airlines to do it. But I've been all over the nation, all over the world, really, to see partners everywhere. And it's that entrepreneurial spirit and that experience. I love it. I think it wouldn't be the same without doing that. And I've devoted my career to doing just that, so it's been exciting.
I mean, how do you even describe the channel? My parents still have no idea what I do for a living. And, you know, if their cell phone breaks, they immediately call me. Like, I have no idea what they're talking about. But the channel, I mean, I've grown up in the channel since day one. This is as you know, it's a really cool venue for me, because I went to school here at Palm Beach Atlantic University, just down the street. Business management and religion major, believe it or not, and somehow wound up in this whack job business with all of you and these guys. So, you know, it's an amazing place to be, and what an amazing time to be there. You know, starting with, you know, your iPhone scenario and everything. It's a weird thing for me because I'm, as a Gen Xer, right, I remember what it's like to be dropped off at an office building with a yellow pad and a stack of business cards and a bunch of change in my pocket to make sure I can make a call, you know, if I got an opportunity. And I also know what it feels like to be text messaged on the fly with a lead and to be in a meeting, you know, either on video with Europe or in front of one of you. So for me, the channel is the most exciting place to be. I love the stories too, Craig. It's a great point, just seeing your businesses, skyrocket in this amazing time that we're all fortunate enough to be in. So it's really fun to be in the channel.
Gee, I remember the gas lamps, but I won't go back there.
I don't remember.
But what I find out most fascinating about channels is the voice of the customer you hear. You're actually very, very close to your customer. Even in direct sales, they may have a relationship, but you have a relationship to many. So you get multiple voices. And what I always love about the channels is the feedback. We know immediately whatever we got doesn't work. We know immediately what we need to change. We need to change rapidly. And it's the channel group and it's that access to the real people that buy our products, buy our solutions. You're their voice. And that is, I think, what makes it such a creative group, is that transitioning, that change. And we've alluded to that. But it's that voice of the customer that you live with on a day-to-day. That entrepreneurial spirit is key, but it's knowing the voice of your customer and being able to feed back to us. That, I think, is amazing, guys.
I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to say I love winning deals against our direct team. So I'm half kidding with that, although I do. But I think, when you look at it, the relationships, both personally and professionally, that you've built with your partners, as well as the master agents over the years, just some of the memories that you've had coming to events like this. And to me, I love seeing people that I've built these relationships with start their own business, have the courage to go out with the entrepreneurial spirit, start their own company from 1, 2, 3 people company to build it up and grow it to 20, 30, 40 employees, and just to see the success that they had. I love to see that, and that I get a lot of pleasure of seeing that success come to people that have the courage to go out and do that.
All right, perfect. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. And actually, your answer, kind of cues us up for the next question. So I'll actually start with you there, Cliff. So we've seen a tremendous amount, right, of mergers and acquisitions that have occurred within the channel, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. I think everyone in the room can agree with that. In fact, TCG over the past 18 months has had about an 8% correction in just our portfolio alone from those logos changing hands. This will be an easy question for you, but right, why should a partner align themselves with a top flight master agent such as TCG, and why, when we're in this kind of world of just fear, uncertainty, and doubt when it comes to all the M&A activity? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's the reason, right? I think you look at it, and to me, I would say, why? I have partners that come to me and want to sign directly, and I say, why would you want to do that? Do you want to, reconcile 10 to 15 different comp statements every month? Do you want to really track that? Do you have the budget and the overhead to bring in a sales engineer and all these different resources and the tools and that you have access to, the trainings, the seminars, the events? To me, there's really no benefit to go alone versus going and working under a master agent like a TCG. It's a no-brainer to me.
Well, I actually have to agree with you on that statement. The power of many is much more powerful than the power of one. Yeah, you go ahead. You could go sing a few songs. I think when you really look at it, think about the good times. Right now we have the good times, so relationships are key. What happens in the bad times? When the bad times occur, it's really the teams around you that help support and bolster you. By belonging to a larger group, it allows you to have that flexibility to adapt to those changing times. That's what happens with the power of many. So belonging to the larger master agents gives you that flexibility, not only for the great times, but when the times aren't so great. And you need those relationships and that interdependence, which helps you then grow independently, but also to expand your portfolio. So.
Good answers. We're at 8x8, we're very careful with regards to what master agents we go to market with. And TCG was an easy pick because of the history, the 30 years plus as we open today. You meet with Dan one time and you know that this is the real deal. And so I think that you have to be careful. Unfortunately in this world, divorces are impending. And that goes for your masters, that goes for your suppliers. It goes across the board, especially in our world in the cloud space. A lot of activity right now. And that's what happens when you have a $100 billion TAM that we want all of you to take advantage of. So I think, you have to do your due diligence, and I think history says a lot. But as important as the history, it's really these guys and, the direction of the company moving forward and your plans for the future. What is this, your fourth event?
This is our fourth channel source.
My first, and I'm guessing there weren't this many people here on the first one. Just to
Definitely not.
guess.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate at Comcast to actually build the channel with my team from scratch, and it was the deliberate intent to have master agents as part of the strategy. And I've spent years in my career seeing the movie, and I knew then that it was important to have those kind of partners for a lot of reasons, namely, I don't like putting partners in harm's way, and in this space, these contracts can be onerous, and we definitely enforce them. So we only want the folks that are really going to meet the requirements, and we chose the best of the best, and I'm happy to say TCG's gotten to amongst the top 3 that we have in the nation, and quite impressive. So I watched their evolution, but it's the support they give to the downstream partners besides tackling the issues associated with a contract. And it's the value add. And I think as time goes on, solutions get more complicated, many different vendors involved in them. It's so critical then to have somebody like TCG to support you, because you're going to need that in order to win in the marketplace. So I'm a big believer in the model, and I'm a big supporter in it.
Yeah, so I think we're the newest into the master agent game, right? We have a pretty sizable legacy channel. We actually refer to them as solution providers, our legacy relationships. And I think there is a huge value to all of you to work with the master agent. You know, we're very pro either way. Selfishly, I'm all about masters, so I think you should be here with the masters, right? But when I think about why, right, there's a lot of resources that master agents bring to bear that as a direct partner, you have to bring to bear yourself, whether it's technical resources, whether it's compensation resources, whether it's marketing resources. And the master agent community allows you to tap into that without having to fund your own and build that competency. It's also going to allow you to come in with an opportunity, and a master agent can help you grow it, whether it's within a provider or across providers, right? And the key for all of you is to grow the size of the opportunity that you're presenting to your customer to become that much more valuable to your customer. And a master agent can help you cross product lines, right? And you might have 3 or 4 or 5 providers involved in a deal because of a master, that if you were trying to sell something direct, is going to be much harder for you to do.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly there, and thank you for all those answers. So, you know, we're all inundated by all these new buzzwords, right? It seems like there's a new buzzword coming out right almost every single week. All these different acronyms that a lot of the partners in the room, you know, right, truth be told, we weren't selling a couple of years ago. Things such as SD-WAN, things right, such as IoT, right, unified communications as a service, or just about every other possible thing with AAS right behind it, right? What of all these new technologies and all the new products that are available to, right, for partners to sell within your own company's portfolio, right, which one of these technologies or which one of these newer products, new age products, is going to be most important to your company's growth in 2020? Start with you, Chris.
So, I mean, the obvious answer from us has a tendency to be around mobility, right?
Of course.
5G, IoT, mobility is certainly key to the conversation for us. But I think it's much more than mobility. Really, when you think about what 5G does, is it starts wirelessly enabling everything, and it starts changing the conversation from just wired network to anywhere, anytime sort of network. And I think that then starts to change the conversation into a whole bunch of other places. And from there, you sort of end up at the edge, you end up at Wi-Fi, you end up kind of everywhere. You know, cloud companies, born in the cloud companies, none of that works without some form of connectivity to get there. And what's really enabling cloud companies to grow incredibly is the bandwidth and the ubiquitous bandwidth anywhere you go on any device to get into the cloud, right? And so I think that when you think about us, or hopefully when you think about us, you think about network, but our network is expanding from just wireline into wireless. And then we're going to fill around that whole portfolio. The benefit of being AT&T is we're large and we're in a lot of places. And for all of you, what I would encourage you to do when you think about what you're selling, what you're talking to your customers about, AT&T is an interesting animal from the perspective of there's so many services that and solutions that we offer that you may not even realize, because the benefit of being AT&T is we're big and everyone knows who we are. The negative of being AT&T is we're big and you think you know who we are. And you may not fully understand all the solutions that we have. And so I think it's important, talk to our team while you're here, because there's a ton of opportunity in our solution set, but it all starts with 5G and taking the network everywhere you go, anywhere you go, anytime, any device. We want to help you get to whatever your data is. That's what we're all about.
So I think it's similar in that we're fashioning ourselves as the world's best last mile provider, and certainly we're a network company, but then we're also a company that allows you to manage the network. So from that perspective, the big buzzword, of course, is software-defined networking. It's not a product for us, it's really a platform by which you could architect your entire solution from, because it starts with managed router, which is the core component of what our SDN platform is, but it's the ability to add multiple virtualized functions, network functions on top of that. And I think that's the value of the channel ultimately. It starts with being able to manage the network, but then there'll be other things like managed firewall, which is on top of that, and managed router and managed Wi-Fi, and even bring your own virtual network service, even UCAS on top of that. So you can use our platform as a basis by which to add multiple services, of course, increasing the ARPU all the time. We call it from racks to apps, the notion that you move from a physical hardware world in the closet of the customer to one where everything's virtualized software. And that's what every one of you are going to have to be involved with if you want to participate in the new digital transformation world. So ActiveCore is our platform. We brought a number of people here. Josh Hendrickson somewhere around, I don't see him, but he's helping us move that platform, and it fits in nicely with a lot of the folks up on the stage here. So that's our big focus.
So we hear about customer experience, right? In every conversation we have, we talk about the customer experience. And one of the main components of the customer experience that makes the customer experience possible is speed. It's just a fact. It's speed. Everything they just talked about is about speed. It really is about ubiquitous speed everywhere and anywhere. And when you think of speed today and you think of that customer experience, you think of cloud, because it's easier, it's faster, it's available. And that's what cloud is all about. That's why 8x8 obviously exists in a pure built from the cloud solution. I gave a keynote this past year at Channel Partners, and one of the statistics just startled me. And to this day, I think about it almost in every conversation I have, in that Harvard did a business study where 89% of companies polled in the Fortune 1000 said they were going to compete on the customer experience. 83% of those CEOs thought that they were meeting the customer need. 8% of the customers agreed. And to me, that is the opportunity for you. That is the mystery, right? There's margin in mystery. And that opportunity for you to compete in that piece is where you're going to make your money. And I just really, truly believe that you have to understand the cloud. Just 3 or 4 years ago, down the street at Enterprise Connect in Orlando, or up the street, sorry, the customers would send their CIOs with the grocery cart and say, go find me a contact center solution and find me a hospitality solution and get me call record, whatever it was. And they'd come back home with their little packages and say, here it is, we've got it, let's force this on our customers. Those days are long gone because the customer now decides. And so you have to be prepared, in my opinion, based on what these guys have said, and I know what they're going to say, to hit that opportunity hard and fast, because it's all about the customer experience and it's all about speed.
Very well said.
Thank you.
If you look at it, what are we in the business of? In the business of information. I mean, what do carriers do? We know data. We transport it at incredible speeds. The challenge, or at least what we've looked at it, is the game is, what do you do with the data? You have to be in the solution game. Not only is the carrier, which was table stakes, we have to be able to do speed, we have to be able to handle MPLS, we have to do SD-WAN, we have to do resiliency, we have to do all that stuff. But then what do you do with that data and what do you sell over the top? Now, IoT is a great sell, but what is IoT? It's the business of transformation. It is the analytics of data. So when you look at those changes, we looked at the world as end-to-end solutions. Don't worry about the senses, worry about the outcomes. And if you're focusing on the outcome, back to your customer experience, then you're changing the business you're going after. Because digital transformation is about 3 key plays: the customer experience, the optimization of the operation, but the new business model that you can generate for that customer with speed, with data, with analytics. And those are the focal points of what we're looking at. To be ubiquitous, or how do you transport? To be able to now take that data and be able to extend the customer experience about what do you do in retail, what do you do with temperature, what do you do with customers, what do you do with fuel management, what do you do with risk assessment, answering the business terms, not the technology play. And that is the transformation that's going on with every carrier. I mean, we're the third largest carrier in the world. We come out of Latam. But it's those type of changes that are now becoming applicable to industry, and that's what your customer is asking you for. How are you going to solve their problem?
I'm going to agree with Chris from what he said early on, which is a lot of this comes down to the connectivity. And if the customer doesn't have connectivity that's reliable, dependable, that's scalable, all of these other things which are all equally important to drive the need for that connectivity and the bandwidth, a lot of them are at a loss if the connectivity is not reliable and it's not working properly. So when you talk about customer experience, to me it all starts there. And a lot of people don't realize some of what Crown Castle does, but we have some interesting things that are on the roadmap for 2020. One of them is fixed wireless, right? So Crown Castle is one of the larger cell tower operators in the US. To have the ability to build true diversity through a wireless platform to go along with the wireline side, in addition to being able to turn up bandwidth on demand and give those types of functionality to the customers so that they can control their network more and more as we go forward. Those are all equally important, but I really think it comes down to the reliability of the service itself. And if you don't have that reliability, all of these other things aren't going to work properly, and that's going to be negatively impacting your customer experience.
All right. Well, speaking of these new technologies, I know when I say this, I'm probably going to get a collective groan from just about all the partners in the room, but we're in the middle of this almost proverbial, right, like race to zero, right? And we've seen price compression from all different parts of the stack, right? Things are just becoming not just cheaper, just more affordable, and we don't really know where it's going to stop, right? So, and this is an answer that's specific to each one of your individual companies. What are some things that you're doing to combat that race to zero? What are some add-on or stack-on products that you can sell to just in general, right, like increase the ARPU? And if you could, what's one thing that you would like to see every partner sell on every deal to combat the massive, kind of compression, right, that we've seen recently? Right, without knocking over your microphone, right, preferably. Start with you, Chris.
Well, in the greedy sense of the world, which is sort of how we look at the world, right? We start with the network, right? But when you then think about the customer, right? There's the wireline network, there's the wireless network, there's the security. AT&T is actually the second largest network security provider in the world, and no one seems to know that, right? And so when you think about moving all this data into the cloud that John's doing, right? If it's not secure, now you've got a problem when it's up there, right? So you've got your wireless connectivity, your wireline connectivity, you've got security. You start layering on top of it sort of the edge solutions, the Wi-Fi solutions. And one of the things that we believe is our portfolio, we have categories, but there are 150-ish categories of services that we think that you could sell to a business customer with AT&T. And not every customer needs every solution, but correct. As you start down that path and you start, and you were talking about it a second ago, a lot of you all and a lot of us are technologists, right? So we talk about whatever the latest technology is and we get jacked up on it, and you want to push this as a service or whatever that technology is. And if you think about what your customers want one of three things. They want to increase sales, they want to decrease expense, or they want to provide a better service to their customer. And if you go in and you have those conversations with their customers, chances are someone on this stage or someone outside has a solution that can help the customer do that more effectively, right? And I would be less focused on pushing the next technology or the next thing, as much as I would go back to listening to what your customers are worried about, listening to what they're focused on, and then thinking about the kinds of solutions that can help get there. But no, They all need connectivity, they all need security, they all need to start thinking about the edge. And then there's all these really fascinating solutions and applications and cloud-based things that are out there that you can start talking to your customer about. So if all you're gonna do is push network, you're gonna live in that race to zero. But if you think about all of the other areas and all the other places you can go, and again, to the earlier conversation of what can a master do, a master has relationships with all these different service providers. They can help you learn about all these various solutions and how you can stack things together so that the solution the customer's looking for shouldn't be a race to zero. There may be components of it, but if you're focused on the value-added stuff and the things that are helping the customer get to where they want to be, it's not going to be a race to zero. And I think we feel like we have a good story on that front, and we would encourage you to talk to us about it.
So price compression, I think, is inevitable, and it's the reality of the world. How many have heard of the Moore's Law and what that's about? And of course, in the computing world, that's the notion that the power of computing increases 60% annually. Who's heard of Nielsen's Law? And that's related to the bandwidth space, where the speed of bandwidth grows at 50% a year, and they've tracked this back to the early 80s, and darned if it isn't exactly true mathematically that every year the speed of bandwidth increases by 50% that a customer needs and uses. And of course, when they do that, they got to pay more money typically, but there is price compression along the way. So the good news is that this is just part of the reality. I remember the days when I was selling PCs in the late 80s, and I would get $5,000 for a 386SX chip inside a compact box that couldn't even power my iPhone today. And now you fast forward to today, and it's just a whole different world. And so that's just going to happen no matter what. What you've got to be able to do then is sell additional offerings, as Chris was alluding to, that would allow you to augment that. In our case, in the SMB space, you could add in Security Edge for kind of a flu shot for the internet. You could add in Wi-Fi Pro, Connection Pro, backup services, and ultimately, suddenly what was once $100 becomes $200 overnight. So that's one way. And then on the fiber side, certainly selling the combination of network plus the SDN platform could yield an incredibly higher ARPU than just selling bandwidth alone. I see no future in selling pure bandwidth alone. And I'm pushing my entire team and all of our partners to move into that space that sells network, and it sells the management of the network, sells UCaaS, firewall, storage, cloud, and even SaaS. Even if you can't do it all yourself, partner with others who will, because your customer is going to demand that of you.
Good. How many have heard of Deleuze's Law? All right, there isn't one. But I wish there was
What's
one.
that law dictate?
I would be very important then. No, I think this whole... I think it's just a big shenanigan. The race to zero, voice is dead, all of these things we've heard over our whole career. I had somebody tell me one time, if you don't buy an ISDN or sell it, you'll be out of business, all those kinds of things. And I think that you just have to be smart, to Craig's point. You have to look at the whole stack. From a cloud perspective, one of the things that I love about 8x8, and it's why I came to the company, is that you've seen us all over the press saying we own it all. Well, we do, because with our technology, whether it's a receptionist phone or an Omni contact center agent desktop and everything in between, you have an opportunity to make money and to provide a solution through an amazing master like TCG. So I would tell you that margins definitely probably are a little more compressed. We've seen this our whole careers. If it's a straight voice play, a straight UCaaS play, right? I think you could find some really unique ways to make money even there. But you have to look at the other things. What about the contact center? We just acquired a company in Singapore called WaveCell, which will be very applicable to the partners that get it because it's a CPaaS play. Are you customizing applications on that kind of platform to deliver those to your customers with high margins? To me, those are the things you have to think of. I think the cloud is an incredible playground for you. And you get to go and play and figure out ways to bring value to your customers and to make money doing it. And I think there's lots of opportunity. Is it a race to zero? I'm sure there are places where you'll make less profit, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else than where we are today on this stage and these technologies with the opportunity to really deliver value for your customer and make a whole lot of money to go on vacation with. That's what it's about, right?
I was a Fortune CIO in Wall Street for 3 large organizations, and I always used to hear the race to zero. And guess what? There is no race to zero. It's always the race to what's the next play.
Good answer.
And the challenge always becomes is how do you bundle it?
That's right.
How do you challenge what's in front of you and then it moves? And we talk about telecoms. We talk about the guaranteed bandwidth. But that's table stakes. We need to do that. That's what we do for a living. But if you overlay it with other things like managed services, like professional services, like the ability to do call centers, the concept you do with VCAS, telemedicine, and linkages into your call center, those added values change the way a company responds to you. You're solving as a business partner, and working with a partnership like here with TCG allows you to have that flexibility to know those alliances and know those groups to be able to tap them. That's part of the game. And it's always been the game that's out there. And every CIO you meet and every business exec, and I was a CXO, CIO, I ran my own company, I ran my own group, I worked for the government, and at the end of all this, there is no race to zero. There's always going to be a better mousetrap and a better solution, but it always depends on the individual who can find it. And the guy is listening to your customer. He's going to drive what the next play is. And that's where you're going to do shift. And it's the bundling of services have always been key, not just, I'm going to sell you bandwidth. That's not going to do it.
I think in addition to all that, right, obviously there's a lot of add-on features that add to the revenue when you're doing a quote for someone, but I always tell my channel managers, it's not just about giving the customer or the partner what they're requesting, but give them more than what they're requesting. Give them options. If they're asking for 100 meg, give them a 200 meg and a 300 meg option. If they're just asking for bandwidth, add on security, managed router, DDoS, encryption. Give them more options, because a customer may look at those and say, and that starts a different conversation, and why do I need that, or I need that, or what else do you have? I mean, that to me, that's what is about upping the ARPU for the customers, to offer them more than what they just simply come and ask for. Take the time to give them more of a selection and see what they are interested in, and go that direction.
All right, excellent. And thank you all for those answers. This is another thing that applies to just about everybody in the room. Churn is the biggest concern, right, for a lot of people, right? It's just something that keeps a lot of partners up at night. I know it keeps us master agents up at night. Another big buzzword, is the common theme right now is CX, or right, the customer experience. Another thing that's been thrown at us, right? And this is a two-part question, and you can answer it kind of either other way. So what's something that your company is doing to kind of better the customer experience, and or, right, what are some things that all the partners in the room, right, can do to improve the customer experience? And we'll start with you, Chris.
I think a lot of people go at customer experience in a bunch of different ways. I think there's a couple things. One, I think it's customers want to be self-serviced, right? Who wants to call an 800 number? They want to be serviced when they want to be serviced, how they want to be serviced, and in a way that's practical. And I was out there earlier at lunch. I needed to get something done, and I was annoyed because I couldn't chat with someone to try and get an issue resolved, right? We're spending a lot of money trying to make sure that we continue to enable the customer experience from the perspective of how customers can engage with us in a today's technology way. It's a terrible way to say it, but in a very user-friendly way, whether it's texting, whether it's chatting, whether it's online, when it's how they want to do it, right? And I think that you all, at the same point, when you think about your customers, you need to think about it that way. And we're also then trying to enable the agents and the masters that are working with us to make the process easier to work with us, because at the end of the day in these situations, the customers maintain a relationship with AT&T contractually and financially, but you're the face of AT&T to those customers. And so we need to make sure that we make it easier for you to do that, right? And then at the same point, we want to make it so that so often people are focused on customer experience in terms of maintaining a customer. We'd like you to build that relationship and continue to grow that customer, right? Give you more reasons to go talk to that customer. So often when customer experience comes up, it turns into rules of engagement, it turns into channel conflict, it turns into those kinds of things. But if you make a sale to a customer, and then you don't talk to that customer ever again, you haven't really done what's in that customer's best interest, right? You need to build a relationship. And part of what we want to do to help you all with that customer experience is give you more things to talk to the customer about, more solutions to talk to the customer about, to the point of becoming a trusted partner. If you're their trusted partner, when some other vendor calls up, they're not going to want to talk to them. They're not going to want to talk price points if you're that partner that's that solution that brings solutions to them. So I think we're doing a lot of things to try and make the experience of working with us or being our customer easier, and servicing in what I'll call 2020 and beyond technology. And at the same point, we're going to work with all of you to make sure that you understand all of the reasons you could be engaged with your customer to build that trusted relationship so that some other vendor doesn't come in and sort of snake them away.
Well, I think we can agree that I think the partner experience, right, for everybody in the room is just as important as the customer experience these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if you've been like me the last 9 years and you've been selling cable, you haven't seen a lot of churn because there hasn't been much. We keep growing at double digits every year because customers don't leave us when you sell it. And it's a great advantage of selling our solutions. It's also a weapon I use in this channel. You know, there's folks that always have that argument about the cost of a sale through direct and the cost of the sale through the channel. And one of the top reasons to go through the channel is the churn's much lower than it is with direct. So even though as a company our churn's relatively low, it's even much lower in the channel. Partners hold on to customers. It's a great thing, and we put a lot of emphasis on that. Thank you. And
I'll clap to that.
that's probably one of the best things about this channel, and it's definitely one of the advantages because you have that relationship with your customers, and they're not as likely to leave. Why? Because you've got your fingers in a lot of the elements that what they need, and it's not just the network side, but many other components, the communication side, the storage side, and so on. And I think that's an advantage. We put a lot of emphasis on Net Promoter Score. We have a whole entire department focused on that. We read out these numbers every single month, and in our channel even, we do it with our partners. We take scores of every partner that we have and assess that information. So it's all about that. Beyond all that, we're putting multiple millions of dollars into new back office systems we've been working on for the last few years to take the complex components of billing through cable into one common system we call Orion. And it's a multi-million-dollar deal, but we're going to have it done next year. So it's exciting. So all those things are going to, I think, lead to better customer satisfaction. And even though we have extremely low churn, I expect it to go even lower further.
Nice. I think I have the answer for you in this question from a TCG perspective. I really think I know the answer to this, Dan. How many people in this room have gone to the Calypso Grill with Dan Parigi? Raise your hands. All you got to do is take your customers to that place one time with this man.
The grilled conch is pretty
and I
good.
promise you, they will be delighted. They will be delighted. I mean, I'm not going to say anything that's going to change your life on this one, right? The thing is that if you're not dating your customer, somebody else is. It's just that simple, right? It's just that simple. You're my customer as partners. And I promise you, I'm going to show up just like these guys are and try to challenge you every single day with new products, new services, new opportunities, lead generation. I'm going to respectfully point out deficiencies where I think I can help you get better. I'm going to listen to you as you tell me where I can get better as we move forward. So I don't know that there's some, answer that you're going to dust off that's going to change everybody's life. I tell my team this all the time, and they're laughing at this, I tell them to show up. Show up. It's more than half the battle. My favorite movie is a movie called Gladiator, and I remember at the beginning of every one of Maximus's battles, he would show up and he would feel the dirt. He'd pick up the dirt. Remember that scene? He'd always pick up the dirt in his hands. If you've seen the movie, because he really wanted to understand what that was on that battlefield and how to approach it. And I always say to these guys, feel the dirt. You have to show up and understand the game. And so I think that if you do that with your customers like we do with the partners, I think you're going to be successful. And Calypso Grill, hit him up. I'm telling you, it's absolutely phenomenal.
When you talk about customer experience, you're the customer base. But it's all based on trust. Because when you have a customer experience, the trust relationship between you, my company, yourself with your companies, and with your customers becomes key. Because we need to be there when it's a good day. we also need to be there when it's a bad day. Our solutions need to work. They have to work flawlessly. They have to be simple. The philosophy that we have in our corporation is every solution is built for the consumer to be run by the enterprise versus built for the enterprise to hope that it works for the consumer. It's a reverse thinking. Start small, scale large. Don't build scale and hope it can get to small, because that's very difficult. So you have to look at what you're trying to tackle. And if you can handle the consumer of one, you can handle the consumer of many. And the customer experience is based on that. Now, you talk about customer experience. We're the telco groups. Mobility is our play. What's your number one device to interface to any customer or any individual? It better be your phone. Because guess what, guys? When you go into basically a telepresence rooms today, it's a phone to phone now. It's not PC to phone. They expect the interactive. The millennials want to be contacted. They don't like text. They don't like the conversation. They like multiple texts. You ever talk to your kids? I'm surprised. My daughter has 37 conversations, and she can keep track of every one of them. Who I hate, who I like, who I dislike. I never meet him again. He's a great person. They got it all planned. And what happens is, it's that ability is also growing. And our ability to interface with you at those speeds becomes key, because your customer's expecting it. So the customer experience is evolving. But it's so key that it's built on that trust paradigm. Because once that's established, you'll forgive me when I make a mistake. But you'll never forgive me if you don't have trust. And I can't build that relationship. And that's the customer experience people are expecting today.
So we're pretty fortunate because we sell a product that is pretty easy, right? When you strip the voice off of the product, it becomes a lot less painful for the customer.
It's amazing how that works, huh?
But with that said, a lot of it's just basic blocking and tackling. The worst thing for a customer is a lack of communication. And whether it's a pending install or update on a repair ticket, it's not just about giving them the update when there is an update, but it's about giving them an update sometimes when there isn't an update and letting them know that you're still there. And so I think for me, even as a customer for any other product or anything that you're ordering, if you don't know what's happening or where it is or when it's being delivered or get confirmation, that's what makes a company like Amazon so successful, right? You buy a product from them and it's easy communication. You can see everything. Everything is right there. You know exactly where you are, where it stands. You know if there's something that's an obstacle in the way. So to me, communication is the key. So in addition to all those other things and understanding what the customer is looking for, if you're not communicating with them properly, they're going to get frustrated pretty quickly, and that just gets you off into the wrong foot, or put you on the wrong foot if it's already an existing customer that's having that first negative experience. So that's how I see it. It's so important to over-communicate versus under-communicate.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So we started off with some fun questions, kind of lighten the mood a little bit, and we're going to finish with one of them. And I really do wish we had more time because this has been a great conversation. But we'll start with you, Cliff. A couple of you guys might remember this from last year. It's a personal favorite of mine. If you could have any spirit animal, what would be your spirit animal and why? And keep it short. Cliff.
I'm going to have to go with the dog. I saw that dog here today, the service dog. He was so well behaved, and you just look at him, and I just feel like a dog is so relatable to a human.
Mine would be the cheetah. You have to move fast, you have to be quick, and you have to be focused.
I actually didn't read far enough down for this one. Daggone it. You know what? I think it would have to be some form of really aggressive bird. Like an eagle or like a hawk, because I've never flown on my own. And
you got some talons, man.
Yeah, I think that would be fun, right? To be able to just fly above everything and see what the heck's going on with a different perspective, and see a small animal in a backyard just come down and just kidding.
It's a small dog. You see the small dog in the backyard, right?
It's a little aggressive, I know. You said M&M. That was really aggressive. So an eagle.
Everyone knows I like cats. Dalen makes fun of me about my cat. I bought a cat from Latvia for my significant other, and he's a predator, and I like predators, so I like cats. That's why.
All right, so I boycotted last year on this question, but so I did read this time, so I'll go with white elephant.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Brian, thank you from the bottom of our hearts, right from TCG, right for not just what you do for the channel, but also what you did right for us and all of our partners. So I'd like to give all these panelists just a quick round of applause. Thank you very much.